Today we're going to be talking about what's new. The new ITIL 5 or ITIL version 5 has arrived. And before we jump in and I introduce our key speaker here, I know some people here are familiar with Austin Group. Some people are familiar with Flycast Partners. For those not familiar with Flycast, just give a quick plug to myself. I'm our Director of Sales Operations at Flycast Partners. We've been around since 2011, and our primary focus at Flycast is to help our customers grow in their ITIL maturity, in their business processes. And one of the main ways we do that is by helping organizations improve the use of the solutions and the technology in that space. We've worked with over 1,800 customers in North America. We work all over the US, different pockets, and we have experts who understand several of the ITSM solutions on the market. We also take a OCM approach, organizational change management. So a lot of our clients, as the technology is updated, we are helping them evaluate those new solutions, adopt them, and most importantly, go through a good implementation so that they see value in the solutions that they utilize. One of our key partnerships is with Mike Victal and the Austin Group, who I'm happy to announce and introduce here. Mike, I think the real reason I'm on the call is to give you a proper introduction. I know you're very humble. You won't brag on yourself too much, so let me do that piece for you before we kick it off. So, I've known Mike probably going on 7 or 8 years now. We've worked together, and where Mike has been a great resource for us at Flycast Partners with all of his expertise in the ITSM world. Over 30 years, Mike, you've been doing this. I know you've been at large organizations before, and founding the Austin Group in 2006. That's where you spend most of your time working with your clients. So everybody on the call, if you don't know Mike, he's seen it all. I think he's been part of it all the way up to also co-authoring the ITIL for Direct Plan and Improve publication. And we're excited to have you in here, Mike, as quickly as we could get you on after the announcement of the new ITIL version 5. So welcome in, and tell the audience what we're going to be talking about today.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, David. I appreciate that. Appreciate the bragging on me. Yeah, it's nice. And this new announcement we have really, it's been needed to take place for a while, but we'll talk about the details of this here in a little bit. But working with Flycast Partners over the last 7 or 8 years that we've been working together, working with many organizations literally across the globe, helping them with their ITSM initiatives, primarily wrapped around practices such as ITIL. So it's always great to work with partners that are helping other partners to achieve their objective as well. We have a great partnership with Flycast and have for a number of years, and it's been very, very welcoming. As a matter of fact, we'll be co-sponsoring an event next week in Las Vegas together with Flycast. So, been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun working with David and his team as well. So, this is going to be a session on the new release of ITIL, and that is, they call it the new ITIL. Then if you're going to talk about classes and those types of things, we talk about as being the ITIL version 5. We need to kind of version things to separate one educational course curriculum versus another one, especially when they're overlapping with one another as well. As you saw on the previous slide, I personally been doing ITIL for a long time. I mean, we'll just call it back to 1999, a long time ago. And have gone through the transitions of ITIL from version 2 to version 3, the new edition after that, and then into ITIL 4, and it has to change. So here comes another one as well, right? We are going to talk about why ITIL version 5 now. We will talk about the some of the key components that make up the new ITIL version 5. I'm not talking about everything, we just can't. But I will talk about some of the key things that I find to be very interesting in ITIL version 5. Then I think we'll get into the topic of really, what about you? What about you and your path of the ITIL journey and your certifications and what you already have investment in? And how does that play a part into what we're going to be doing for ITIL version 5 going forward? Right? I'll just tell you now, it's not lost, right? So whatever you've gained with this here from ITIL over the years. So at the very end, we'll talk about some of these recommendations and next steps, maybe things that should be taken into consideration with the curriculum, but also other things as well from an ITIL perspective. And hopefully we'll have some time with some questions along the way. With that being said, David, did you want to answer questions at the end, or how'd you want to do that?
Yeah, I've seen the agenda, Mike. I think let's try to save most of the questions for the end,
Okay.
because I believe a lot of the content you're going to provide will hopefully answer those along the way. But anything that we don't get to in the session, we will record those questions for everybody individually. If you do put questions in the chat, if we don't get to them today, we will make sure that somebody from Flycast or Austin Group reaches out, engages, tries to answer those questions, or give you the information you need to continue your ITIL journey.
Okay. Yeah, great. Anything pressing along the way, put it in the chat box, and we'll question box. We'll go ahead and address those as we go forward. Hopefully, we'll answer those by the end of the day, and if not, as David said, we'll get back to you. So please ask away as you deem necessary. All right. First, let's talk about why another ITIL. All right, the industry has changed. And if you go back to this whole concept of industry versions, I mean that goes way back to 1800s. But if you think about how the industry has changed, even from industry quote unquote 2.0 to the 3.0 to the 2.0, that's Henry Ford started talking about mass production. You work in the assembly lines and those types of things, trying to get things done as quickly as we possibly can to get to the market demands, to meet the market demands that are out there. Then you get into industry 3.0, where this is the era of the transistor and the microprocessors and the computing. That changed significantly. The environment changed rapidly between industry 1.0 to the 2.0 to now the 3.0, and then things really took off and started advancing rather quickly. However, you get to industry 4.0 and you start talking about the automation and the introduction to AI and data, big data, Internet of Things, and that changed rapidly, and that is changing even more rapidly today than what it ever has in the past. So ITIL also needs to change. So the digital era, this new revolution in the industry has required changes to take place, and we need to keep up with that from a service management perspective to ensure that we're embracing the organizational demands that they have to meet their demands from the market perspective. So ITIL needs to adjust as well. And when you get into versions like version 3 of ITIL, I wanted to have a poll come up about how many of you are like ITIL certified and such. Well, many of you I know, at least from our list that we've seen from the registrants so far, many of you are ITIL certified, whether it be through Oslo Group themselves or working with Oslo Group and Flycast. But we look at ITIL version 3, when that came out, I mean, DevOps wasn't even a thing back then. Agile was just getting traction. And then you get an ITIL 4 in 2018 when it's being developed. AI really wasn't much of a thing. This whole concept of the data centers that are now being built and the way we're actually using third-party products and services, that's changed significantly since ITIL 4 came out in 2019, March of 2019. So the need for producing things faster, better, greater quality, that still exists. It's happening more. But not to mention the increased need when you think about from a customer's perspective. What do they need? They need faster, better quality. They need a great experience. And that's something that ITIL is going to address heavily with ITIL version 5, is focusing on the experience of the customers in the market that's out there. So ITIL does need a change. It needs to adapt to the market modifications. That's why we did come out with ITIL 4 after the lengthiest release of ITIL version 3 from 2006 for the most part, all the way up to 2020, 2021. So it has to change. And so ITIL cannot remain stagnant, otherwise the practice will just die. Right? It is the longest IT service manager practice in the world. It is also the most widely adopted service manager practice in the world as well. So when you think about what has changed in ITIL, the new ITIL, we're trying to get used to it as well. New ITIL version 5. Things have changed within ITIL to address the market needs as well. One is really kind of a shift from what we know as IT service management, which we've talked about heavily in previous releases of ITIL and other practices as well. There's, even practices, integrated ITSM, ITSM essentials, IT for IT. There's other verism service management kind of practice. There's a lot of different practices that are out there wrapped around IT service management. Well, we're going to change that in ITIL version 5. We're going to change that now to digital product and service management, now DPSM. So that is a different way of looking at how we do service management when we think about the digital revolution, ITIL evolution wrapped around that. So we do need to take a look at the holistic aspect of digital products and services within the organization. So ITIL version 5 is now bringing back, which I like. If you've taken my class, which I know many of you have that are on the call, I've never let go of what we talk about as this whole service lifecycle approach. I've always talked about it. Even though ITIL 4 didn't necessarily bring that out to face like we did in ITIL version 3, which is very much of a service lifecycle approach for service management. So now we're bringing back the lifecycle. So as these digital products and the services that we need to manage in the organization, we need to look at them from a more holistic perspective and not just IT. We've always believed that IT and the business need to become one. In reality, maybe we haven't. We still have these maybe us and them mentalities between business and IT. And we must bring them together. And I think ITIL version 5, and we're not done. The ink is still drying. The ink is still being drawn on some of the content going forward. But what I've seen so far, I think ITIL version 5 has a really good mapping and alignment towards that business to IT combination of becoming one. And when we think about the technology of how we get this and how we do this, and then we manage that through the life cycle, we do need to make sure we look at technology as part of it. But at the same time, what about the people side? And we'll talk more about that as we get to that, because there is a much stronger focus on, yes, the individuals, but also the experience, but also more importantly, what about customer sentiment? What about customers' experience? How do they feel? What about the organization themselves and the culture of the organization, which is an area we did talk about in ITIL 4. We mean it now in ITIL version 5. Not that we didn't in ITIL 4. It's just a much heavier emphasis on that aspect. When we say AI native by design, AI is part of our lives, and AI is just not IT. I'm just guessing every one of you might have AI in your phone right now, and you're using it on a regular basis. Whether it be an app that you're using that's embedded into something like ChatGPT, whether it's something that you do to go straight to ChatGPT and you use ChatGPT to get information. It's no longer just an IT thing. It truly is a service. It is a digital product and service that's being delivered to you, and we need to manage that. So AI is deeply embedded into everything we do now within ITIL version 5. ITIL 4 didn't really talk about it. Okay. What also is new into ITIL 4 is there's a new qualification scheme, which I think many of you might be interested in today. So we will talk about that and that new scheme and what it means to you. And I'll say it now and I'll say it again later on. I think we've done, when I say we, I mean PeopleCert, the organization that owns everything about ITIL, I think we've done a really good job of trying to protect your investments, even back to ITIL version 3. And if you haven't done anything with ITIL version 3 certifications, those certs are, well, they've expired. But they said we'll honor some of those as well going into ITIL 4 certifications. All right. So again, this is not an all-encompassing list of everything we've added to the ITIL 5. There's a lot more we've added, a lot more content. I've got a book over here. It's lengthy. it's the new ITIL publication that is out there for the ITIL Foundation, which we did in ITIL 4. We did it again in ITIL version 5. So what really remains the same to ITIL version 5? Well, some of you may be familiar with ITIL 4's concept, which I know many of you are certified in already. Some of you are only ITIL version 3 certified. But the guiding principles are not new to ITIL 4. We did keep them into ITIL version 5, and they did come from ITIL version 3 in the 2016 publication for the ITIL practitioner, which I still believe is a phenomenal publication if you're going down the path of doing service management in organization. These now have been only modified to accommodate what's new to ITIL version 5. We have also, for the most part, embedded them deeply into the management practices that we have, the 34 practices, version 3 folks, you might have called them processes. But now we've deeply embedded those into those practices. So we're not getting away from the ITIL guiding principles, and we're not really don't have the ability to cherry pick which ones we want to use within the guiding principles, because they're going to be deeply embedded into all the practices no matter what. I like that, because the 7 guiding principles that we had in ITIL 4, they exist in ITIL version 5. You have the ability to say, well, we're going to do a lot more of start where you are. So we can identify the existing state of services and skill sets and contracts and third parties and integration. And so, yeah, but you can't do that if you don't exercise the other 6. So these are still there. And these are just those principles that we should just always be taking into consideration. One of the key 5 components of the service value system as well. We'll talk about that because that name has gone away. The 4 dimensions. They remain the same, but we'll see in the next one about the things that are the same but different. Right, so the dimensions, we've added some things to this here as well. But I do think it brings, even as David alluded to within what FlyCast does for organizations, the OCM side, the organizational change management aspect of things there. We've actually now embedded not only AI and the AI challenges within the 4 dimensions, primarily around organization and people dimension, but also how do we manage a culture? How do we embrace this as people within the organization? I've seen it personally in clients I've seen out there in the marketplace all over the world thus far. Some organizations are not welcoming AI. They're shying away, or they're afraid of, or resistant to. So we talk about that heavily within the 4 dimensions, really wrapped around one called organization and people. The service value system, formerly known as the service value system. We've kind of taken away this word called service from us. We call it the ITIL value system. And we'll see that as well. That's remained the same, but it's also been modified. And I like the modification that we've done within the service value system, the value system, and what was known as the service value chain, right now known as the value chain. But I like it because it removed the confusion of what we formerly called the service value chain, which in many cases, it was very confusing for those folks who just had no idea about service management. So we'll see that as well. Again, the management practices have been, for the most part, untouched, but we do in fact have some tailoring to do. And matter of fact, that content will be updated as we go through 2026 this year. So the management practices and aligning those practices and the content and the mapping of those practices to ITIL version 5, that'll be done by the end of the year. Right? We're not done. We're not done with ITIL version 5. It just came out, of which the formal release to the marketplace of content, publications, syllabus for exams, and so on, that'll be taking place tomorrow. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what really has changed. All right, so one, we are shifting from ITSM to DPSM. Okay, is this digital product and service management? Digital for different reasons, but it really is um, a more holistic approach to doing service management as a whole, but taking into consideration digital products that we have. What are digital products? As listed here, um, that digital technology and transformation has caused a shift in the business of culture. You know, how we do things, how we get things done. How do I resist or how do I embrace digital aspects in the organization, digital capabilities, and not only just our stuff, but also third party stuff. How do we integrate these things into our environment? It really is a broader concept to IT, and it's much more than just IT, right? So this encompasses all aspect of the organization and how the organization needs to change and adapt and innovate and embrace and take advantage of the existing digital aspects of where we're at today. This is not new, by the way. This has been ITIL 4, even ITIL version 3 to an extent. We're now looking at it differently because it's not just IT. That's why we talk about how ITIL has gone beyond what IT service management is to truly looking at digital products and service management as a whole. It breaks down the IT environment, only thinking about IT. We're much more holistic and have a holistic thought. When we think about product and service management, typically thinking how maybe projects work in many organizations, where product management really is the isolation or that team, that person, that group over there that builds a database and builds infrastructure, and that's all they do. That's the silo they live in. Right? Not saying that's everybody, but at the same time, that may be the case. These silos need to be broken down. We've been talking about this since 2016 in ITIL with the practitioner publication, where we talked about the guiding principles, where we do need to break these silos down. And ITIL 4 really emphasized that in one of the guiding principles called collaborate and promote visibility. And that is to break the silos down and build trust across the organization. We're going to take that and we're now going to expand upon that within ITIL version 5 by leveraging, yes, the value chain components to ensure that gets done, but also making sure we take in consideration DPSM as a whole across the organization. One of the things that's also changed in ITIL version 5 compared to what we've done in ITIL 4, ITIL 4, we had this service value system that just looks familiar. The only thing that's really changed visually is the value chain components or the stages of the value chain. We used to have 6 of these value chain, service value chain components. We now have 8. That's kind of like breaking up what was to now what is. Okay, and then we'll talk more about those here in a little bit. When we think about the value system, we still have the guiding principles, we still have governance, and we still have the practices, and we still have continual improvement triggered by opportunity and demand from the marketplace or internally to deliver that value at the end of the day. That still exists. We've just injected some steroids and now they're bigger and they're more robust and they're much more holistic than what they were before, especially when you get into governance. ITIL's not, nor has it ever been, I can't see it becoming a governance framework. However, we must take governance into consideration, and we think about governance here. We do have a much stronger focus on governance and how we manage and comply and ensure that what we're doing from especially AI, how we do things in the environment, how we need to do it responsibly, right? How do we maintain that, manage that through all the different stages of the life cycle? That's what we need to do, and that's where governance comes into play. It's a much bigger or stronger focus in ITIL version 5 now than really what it ever has been, as far as I can see. Right? It's not COBIT. It's not one of those frameworks. It's not an ISO of sorts, but it is much more robust now, and it works very it's integrated deeply into the value chain activities. Right? So ITIL 4 compared to ITIL version 5, very similar, but also very different, and a much different focus and the breadth and depth of what we're looking at now within the service value or the value system. Even I get mixed up with it still. We also have now a model for the ITIL framework. We now have this called the Digital Product and Service Lifecycle Model. And the model really is aiming to bring different elements together in a more intuitive fashion, thinking about how the components need to be working together. Did we do this before? Yeah, we did to an extent, but it also had gaps that we needed to fill that's going to ensure the holistic approach of doing DPSM within the organization. So we do talk about a more flexible, means to select and manage components to support the overarching strategy. So we can talk about, for those ITIL 4 folks, if you're very well versed in things like continual improvement, one of the things we do make sure that we do is make sure we're continually improving upon the best interests of the organization itself. That's not going to change. Every one of the components of the 8 stages is going to ensure that we are doing that and making sure that we do align ourselves to the organizational needs, but also more importantly, what about the customers? How is this going to impact them? What about their experience? Why are we doing it? Can we do it in efficient and effective fashion? With this model here, there's no one way of doing it either. There's no serial approach. We'll see on the next slide coming up. But this is also going to help us work collectively as we break these silos down in larger organizations, to where organization A over there needs to be working with organization B over here. Organization A over here could in fact be working with primarily the activities or the stages called design, as well as discover. And this organization over here be much more about the acquisition of and the building of. Well, these need to work collectively together. And what we do within these particular stages here is ensure those collaborative efforts are being made, right? So we don't lose anything along the way, and ensure that we have built trust between the departments and making sure we're going to get things done right the first time and reduce the need to rework. So when we think about the service value chain, formerly in ITIL 4, we had these 6 components with engage, plan, design, and transition, obtain and build, deliver and support, not to mention improve, right? Improve is going to be embedded across everything we do, right? Just like we talked about in our classes previously. Well, discover, design, acquire, build, transition, operate, deliver, and support are now the 8 stages. So in order to manage these digital products and services throughout their life cycle, we have service management or management activities that we need to perform. And these 8 stages or these 8 activities, kind of using these words interchangeably, enable and support the life cycle, and they're not necessarily in a fixed fashion. So there's not necessarily prescriptive way of going about doing these. ITIL's never been prescriptive. We've never said you had to do anything. We did say, and maybe we still do say, the fact that if you choose to do something that ITIL might recommend, then you must do certain things in order for it to be successful. However, nothing in ITIL is prescriptive. A strong recommendation. It's been around for 40 years. A lot of understanding of the globe. Why do we not want to take advantage of what ITIL knows, right? So the whole point of this is to make sure that we focus on what needs to be done and make sure we go through the activities regardless of the organizational structure, to make sure these barriers have been brought down, these silos have been broken down, and we actually are working holistically across the organization throughout the entire service lifecycle. And again, I like that. I like how we really brought back this whole service lifecycle approach from an organizational perspective, not just an IT perspective. So I'm a big fan of what they've done with this in ITIL version 5. And then we take these 8 stages into consideration. I'm not going into these in great detail. We have a class for that. So take that in consideration about taking one of the classes. We'll talk about those in a little bit as well. But real quick, when you think about Discover, I think that really aligns well with what we talked about before as engage, is to make sure we get the requirements. We understand the requirements. We understand what the organization's needs are. We understand, how do we deliver that value? What is that value deliverable at the end of the day? What does it look like? What does the end in mind look like? Then we go off and design against that, kind of, build the preliminary aspects of what this is, what this should look like. Then we go off and we acquire the assets that are necessary. Our assets are resources, human, technical, digital, and/or third party, not to mention the skill sets of all parties involved as well. Do we have the assets necessary to facilitate this? Then we build prototypes, build it according to that concept in the very beginning of design. Then we're going to go off and transition this, and transition truly is transition. Now, if you go back to ITIL 4, what we did talk about in ITIL 4, we had design and then we had transition. For those who took my classes in the past, I would talk about design and transition primarily wrapped around design first, after plan, then we obtain, and then we would build, and then I would come back and talk about transition into the operational environment. This just makes more sense, right? To be honest, maybe should have done this in the first place. Either way, the content is there, the concepts are there, they're being done today in your world. These 8 are being done in your world today. The question is, how well are they being done? How efficiently are they being done? How effectively are they being done? And are we delivering the value at the end of the day? And how do we know that? Well, that's where these come into play as well. Operate is to make sure we now operate. These are things like, I look at operate as maybe my old world of operations, especially in the mainframe world, where we're running batch jobs, we're running print jobs, and we were, scheduling things, and we're doing things just to operate the environment that's out there. Deliver is to make sure that, yes, we are making sure that we perform these tasks that are necessary to ensure that, yeah, the SLAs are being met. Onboarding and offboarding activities, as they talk about, and maintaining the expectations, And then we have an activity that's called support. Now, these may be kind of gray. I won't say gray, but maybe some overlapping. I don't mean overlapping as in redundant. I mean, there's different aspects. People in your organization today are in the background doing things that are just not seen by the users or the consumers. They're doing batch job scheduling, they're running print jobs, they're maintaining server rooms, those kind of things. Well, that's operate. Deliver is to get it out there and have these services be used and consumed by the users that are out there. Now we support it whenever, much more reactive, whenever things go awry. We now need to maintain that. We need to make sure we minimize the adverse impacts of the organization when we do have incidents and disasters of sorts. So I like what we've done with the 8 stages of the value chain, because 1, I think it needed to be separated. 2, I think it makes sense to have these in a structured approach to align to what we need to be doing. Now, again, none of those need to be done in any serial approach or any standardized way, right? We can start with acquire. It just depends on what you need to be having done. Something else that's changed as well is the 4 dimensions. So many of you, for ITIL 4, this may look familiar to you. All right, the 4 dimensions they're still there. We've added a few things to these, like within this, we talk about now people, not just people, but also AI. And one of the things we talk about the organizational structure is also the cultural aspects of the organization, making sure that leadership is managing and governing as necessary, making sure we have the skill sets across the entire organization to achieve the activities of those 8 stages we just talked about. Information and technology, data, information, and knowledge. Kind of brought that back. I like it. It was back there in version 3. Some call it a knowledge spiral, some call it the DIKW model. So we had a number of different things that we called it back then. And we brought it back. I like it because we need to take data, we need to turn it into information and give it to knowledge. And here comes AI on top of that, right? With these technologies nowadays, like the halos of the world that are out there that are doing a really good job of bringing in AI into technology and data, which is what it's based on. Other aspects are the partners and suppliers and value streams and processes. if you took my class, then we did talk about what we call the pestle model, right? These external factors that can influence the way you do things. This is much more now embedded into what we do as a framework for ITIL for DPSM, right? So these external things that we really don't have any control over, that we need to make sure are embedded into what we're going to be delivering, as opposed to not, and then we deliver it and we get caught later on, which is exactly what we don't want to do. And that's what ITIL helps us to prevent. What's also changed? Well, to be honest with you, ITIL's now brought in other practices. We did this in other, we'll say ITIL 4, not so much in version 3, but we brought in other practices now that you will be examined on. And I like it, because ITIL's not the end all. There is no framework that does everything, and nor is ITIL that one. So we bring in other factors. SRE, or Site Reliability Engineering, the Google thing, is deeply embedded in many of the different management practices that we have in ITIL today. So whatever those practices are that we have in ITIL, SRE is very much part of those to ensure that we meet the reliability requirements. Rapid, safe, innovative through automation, monitoring, and also continual improvement or continuous improvement as we go forward. So for those of you familiar with SRE, it's now inside of ITIL, right? It's now, we've embraced it as a formal practice. Value stream and value stream mappings, we had those in ITIL 4. You can even get classes on value stream mapping. We've now brought that into the framework for ITIL as well. It's part of our curriculum, right? So value stream mapping and thinking about the best way to traverse through those 8 stages of the value chain. And some value chain value stream activities will be going through, and sometimes they can go backwards, they can go forward, doesn't matter. We're defining the steps that are necessary to go forward to achieve the objective by leveraging those 8 components that make up the value chain. So we do talk about value stream mapping. Matter of fact, quite a few of the exercises in the classes are based on value stream mapping and exercising many of the different ITIL practices as well. One of the biggest things about ITIL version 5 and the enhancement, the embracing of, is AI. Right? AI, we've had these questions for the last few years. Mike, what is ITIL doing about AI? Well, we have an AI publication. We have an AI white paper. I mean, I've got the white paper sitting right here about AI. We have a whole course on ITIL AI governance. Right? We're not getting away from AI. We're not getting away from AI. We are now working with technology. We're not shying away from it. We now have to embrace this. The question is, when we think about AI, how do we govern it, right? So it really comes down to a lot of governance wrapped around AI. When I have this up here, it says AI adoption is growing faster than we can control it. I'm only guessing many of you would agree with that. We're just doing it. We're not governing it. We're just doing it for the sake of doing it, especially when you start talking about some of these aspects about the ethics. Right? Some of these AI engines that are out there have gotten in trouble because of the lack of governance or the lack of ethics wrapped around AI. And how do you take that and bring that into your world? How do you do that responsibly? So we start talking about AI tools. We get into how do we manage this and control what it is we're going to be doing with, and how do we use and consume AI? That's the hard part. And then more importantly, how do we take advantage of what AI can do for us to enable us to become more efficient, more effective to our consumers as well, right? So AI is a big piece of this. Matter of fact, it's embedded in many of the different publications we have now in ITIL version 5 that are coming out. But I look at this as much more of a cultural thing. How do we embrace this, or are we shying away from it? How are we resisting it when maybe we could take advantage of it to enhance our capabilities of doing what we need to be doing? So that too is another major component that's embedded into everything we do within ITIL version 5, right? Again, many other additions to ITIL 5, not part of this here. I can only assume that, maybe David, in the future, we can do some very tailored or specific topic webinars wrapped around ITIL 5 and some of those components.
Absolutely, Mike. And just to piggyback the importance of AI and not just looking at it holistically, but really in depth, right? And I see that in the scheme there that there's some organizations that come to us and they want an AI strategy. So it looks like ITIL version 5 is assisting with that guidance as well.
Yeah, it really is, and it's we try to tie it on at the end of in ITIL. ITIL 4 still is going to be here for a while, but we try to tie it into ITIL 4 because when it came out, it really wasn't there. So we had to come up with something, it's some sort of solution for that. And it is technology, it is data, it is in maintaining the integrity of that, but also ethically and controlling it and doing it responsibly as well. And that's where we now have to embed all that into what we're doing with DPSM, right? So again, more of that later on. Please stay tuned for some of these other webinars we will be doing. But let's talk about the new qualification scheme for those of you who are certified and you want to, advance yourself into ITIL version 5. I'll just say this now. One, if you're already going down the path of doing ITIL 4 and you are signing up for, you already have maybe an advanced class in ITIL 4 and you want to get a certain designation for, I don't know, managing professional, right? And your 3 of the classes are already done. Keep going down ITIL 4, right? Just keep going down. ITIL 4 is not going to go away for at least a year, right? Period. I'm just about foundation as a whole. Then you have the advanced courses. So we're really doing a good job of trying to transition folks into version 5 and keeping your investments sound with this here. So I always say it depends on where you want to go. And I think ITIL version 5 has probably done a better job now than I might even say the previous 2 releases of ITIL to align the path forward to give you the knowledge you need for your role, right? ITIL 4 did a good job as well. ITIL version 5, we narrowed it down and kind of made a much more narrow path for you to choose on what you want to do. Right, so when you think about the scheme here, very much like that of ITIL 4, for those who are familiar with that one there, we have added the AI governance over here, and we kind of removed, or didn't remove them, we've actually embedded some of these other extension modules we had for cloud and other things before. They've now been embedded into these other product offerings in order to keep that because they're still valuable, things like cloud solutions. They're now embedded into these other courses as well as the ITIL transformation. Okay, more on that. So if you think about the qualification scheme, ITIL Foundation is required, just like it has always been, to move on to the advanced courses. All right, you'll see in the next slide coming up that sometimes that's waived for you going forward. ITIL 4 Foundation, ITIL version 5, same thing, you're good, right? So we've kind of made that easy for you as well. ITIL Foundation and governance don't have any prereqs, so there's nothing for even the AI governance, right? So you can just take that class. You don't need to even have ITIL Foundation for that. It's just all by itself, all you want. Okay, you still get credits for it, which is great, and also maintain your certs. The ITIL transformation may be taken immediately after an ITIL foundation course, right? You can do that anytime in your pathway for certification, meaning your foundation, you finish that, you can take transformation anytime you want. Transformation is only need to be done once as you go forward to your other designations of the practice manager, managing professional, or even strategic leader, right? You just take that once, and that can be done at any time post foundation course, which is kind of nice. That's a really, really broad 5-day course. It's going to give you a lot of information about everything ITIL, plan to implement ITIL, governance, and a lot of great topics in that particular class right there, which can be required for any designation for those 3, including ITIL Master as well. ITIL Master, you still need to have your, practice manager need to have your managing professional, ITIL Master, you need your practice manager and your professional certification as well as your strategic leader. You meet those three, you become ITIL master. No sit down interview and all kinds of great stuff, right? Just get those three designations, you become an ITIL master, of which I know many of you on here are, at least from Osland Group perspective as well. The practice manager, which we used to have these three practice manager courses before, and then many other of the practice manager individual courses. The individual courses are still available. There's 15 of the practices here in these three classes, and then we have other classes you can take as well that are individual. Those are still available today. They say it's a one-day class. We don't do it in one day. We'll do it in 2 days, right? Because it's just too much content. But those are still, if you want to do change enablement, that's one class, go do it. If you want to do service desk, do it. We have a class coming up in April where it's going to be service desk, incident and problem, and request management. It's a combined course. So we tailored that to be one course, different exams. But those are available. They will not be available in ITIL version 5 going forward. So if you want them individually now, I'd recommend you get them now as well. Managing professional, you need the foundation course and then these three courses here: ITIL product, ITIL service. Look at the next one, ITIL experience. A whole separate course in ITIL experience. There are industry best practices out there that are just experience management framework based. I like those. We do those as well. But in ITIL, it is about the experience, and ITIL is focusing heavily on the consumer's experience of what they're doing, wrapping it around things like the framework talks about XLAs and experience management level agreements, those kind of things. So really nicely done with that there. It's now embedded that concept into ITIL as well, which we talked about it. But that word experience, it's almost 100 references in the ITIL Foundation publication alone, right? Experience. ITIL strategy, you take ITIL strategy and the transformation, which is required for all of them, then you become your strategic leader as well for that one there, okay? And again, AI governance, you can take that all by yourself, right? With no prerequisite for that one there. Again, I always say the advanced course is where the meat is at, right? So if you want to gain a lot of knowledge in a specific area, take the advanced courses. Foundations is fantastic, but it's the advanced courses that will get you where you need to go in your DPSM journey, and Agile and DevOps and Lean and IT for IT, whatever else you're doing in the organization. Now, going from ITIL version 3 to ITIL version 5, right? We've tried to make it where we're going to help you with that and also protect your investment. But if you're ITIL version 3 foundation certified or intermediate, meaning any one of the 4 modules that would kind of get you into your ITIL master certification, we don't really recognize those, but you do need to take the foundation course itself for those there. Then branches you off into the advanced ones as well. Now, if you're ITIL version 3 expert, then we have a transition class, right? So we have a transition, I think right now it's still 5 days. That's being written up as we speak today. But this is one where you take the managing professional transition course, then you become this in ITIL version 5. So we've protected your investment for ITIL version 3. Previously, we're like, no, that's expired. You need to do ITIL 4, then you merge into ITIL 5. Not the case. Same for master as well. We're now helping you protect that investment as well going forward. So that managing professional transition will be coming out. I think right now they're still dotting I's and crossing T's with that one there. Okay, but that'll be coming out, and I believe it's Q2, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that one there. We'll see how that lines up, but that is a nice option if you're only ITIL version 3 certified. All right, and the other part of this, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to, with the transitions for the advanced V3, and I'm sure you might apply to the advanced courses in ITIL 4 that you'll go over. But do you still recommend those people seeing value in taking version 5 foundations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always am a fan of taking the foundation course. Even when we had previous releases and we go into take a bridge and we take a, transit. I just like the foundation because it gives you everything you need to know about what this framework is all about that maybe is not maybe, but it is not necessarily covered in some of these transition courses or even a bridge course as well. So my recommendation, you do whatever you want, that's legal within the PeopleCert scheme, but my recommendation is always take the foundation. And those are offerings that are out there that you can do it on your own. I always recommend taking it by an accredited training organization such as Oslo Group or go through Flycast. Right? Yeah, so that'd be my recommendation with that. ITIL 4, so you have foundation. That is a valid prerequisite to move forward into ITIL version 5, right? So that's kind of nice as well. Practice manager, you get the ITIL transformation. You take that 1 5-day as it is today, and now you're the same equivalent for ITIL version 5. Managing professional, you take the managing professional transition. Then you become that within ITIL version 5, which is nice as well. Strategic leader, basically the same thing, right? You take the transformation, you become that. But also if you're an ITIL master, then we basically have that transition. So we're giving you a lot of credit for taking managing professional, being an ITIL master, or even being an ITIL expert from version 3. We'll give you a lot of credit to come into ITIL 4 equivalent, I'm sorry, ITIL version 5 equivalent today. So we're doing a lot to help you with that investment you've already gained over the years. We don't want that to get washed out. We're really trying to get you to now learn about what we're doing in ITIL version 5, because there are significant changes between version 3 to ITIL version 5. So again, that's why I recommend the foundation class as well. Right? So again, a great way to go from an earlier release of ITIL into ITIL version 5. And my recommendation is to basically take into consideration what it is you need to do to align to the organization's vision, mission, goals, and objectives, but also your personal path. Independent studies I've seen in the past have been, ITIL has always been one of the top 10 highest demanding IT certifications in the market out there. They say demand, but they also say pay. I disagree with that, because you don't get paid just because you took a test. It's about the experience, right? And about what you do with this when you walk out of a class. ITIL, it is a de facto standard of the globe, and it has been for a long time. I mean, this is the quote unquote ITSM de facto standard framework in the world. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. And I'll be honest with you about ITIL version 5. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what ITIL version 5 brings to the table, because it now takes a much more holistic view of all these different things that maybe we didn't do before. Not that we tried to, say we did, but we didn't in ITIL 4. It's not the case. We just had a different focus on what we actually paid attention to, what we addressed as a service management framework. I like what ITIL version 5 brings to the table. I'm already a fan of it, and it's only been, for us, month and a half maybe new to the marketplace, but I'm excited about it. Going forward in ITIL version 5, keep in mind we're protecting your investments with that there. So take in consideration the different products and the course offerings that we do have out there. All right, so we will be offering all of the ITIL courses. ITIL 4 we already do. ITIL version 5, all these courses we will be offering when they do come out in the marketplace. As a matter of fact, take these into consideration to your role, but also more importantly, as you do this digital product and service management approach in your world, take in consideration the ITSM simulation as well. I know many of you on this call here today have already gone through the simulation. Those are, 1, fun, 2, extremely eye-opening and aha moment given to anybody who's going down this path to see what this is going to look like at the end of the day, or what this could look like at the end of the day. It is ITIL, the new ITIL ready. So take the simulation consideration. They're done on site. Maybe sometimes it's a challenge for you, but those are things that we strongly recommend. And I know many of you have taken this, they're on the call here today, could actually attest to that and say, yeah, you do want to take that simulation. It's a great way to go. All right. So think about your role, think about the organization, align the pathway for you for ITIL version 5. And if you're already going down the path of ITIL version 3 designations of anything above foundation, continue that path. I won't say easier, but a better path into getting into ITIL version 5 and becoming ITIL version 5 equivalent when you get done with that transformation or transition course itself. All right, folks. Well, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and hope to see you sometime soon. And please look forward to those up and coming webinars that'll be more specific and deep dive into certain aspects of ITIL version 5 going forward.